Today we're going to be talking about intent prefixes. In Cymatix platform, intent could carry twofold information. One is obviously what to do, that is an intent itself, and another meaning is what to do with the inference stack. That is short-term memory that keeps all inferences for a particular user. Let's review a very simple example. What if user asks the question, what did you say? Or, repeat please. How would you process this request? Okay, let's assign intent with a prefix. As you can see, we use prefix P. What this prefix means, it basically tells the system to retrieve last prompt and provide it back to user. That's all there is to it. You don't have to do anything else. Let's try to build the project and we'll see what's going to happen.
Population of Seattle is.
Okay.
Population of Seattle is. Population of Seattle is.
As you can see, that's a very easy way to retrieve the previous prompt from the virtual assistant. Let's take a look at the inference. As you can see, we've got exactly the same intent, repeated prompt, and the target. So prefix P goes back one step in the inference stack and return the value. Next prefix I would like to talk about is command return. Intents with R prefix tell the framework to collect all the slots and their values from history and return them to user as inference. After that, inference history will be erased. You may find this prefix very useful for you. Let's assume you have a multi-turn conversation with a pizza bot, and pizza bot keeps asking you questions, collecting information from you. Would you want to receive inference every time with all the parameters collected so far, or you would rather get the inference that contains all the parameters when user confirms that he or she wants to proceed with the order? That's the reason why this command is very useful. Let's take a look at the very end of the dialog when user finishes ordering the pizza. And intent that would be generated in both cases, yes or no, will be prefixed by the command R, which will collect all the information from the stack and return to user. Example of JSON response would look something like that. T size small, T kind pepperoni, and a list of toppings items. This is just an example. So the beauty of R command is you don't have to collect inferences and store them on application side, but rather rely on our backend to do that job for you and return the only final inference at the end of the conversation or micro dialogue. By the way, ignore section tells the system totally ignore the content, so you can put whatever information you need for your project. To sum up, R return command returns all collected slots values in the inference history and cleans the history, so it will be empty. Next command is clean. The goal of it is to erase the content of inference stack. Let's take a look at the example. Let's start all over, or let's start the conversation all over again, or simply reset. The intent would be reset and the prefix is X. One note about this command. Prefix X also tells the system not to store this inference in the inference stack. So the stack will be clean. The derivative of command X is command I. Purpose of this command is very similar to command X, but the last or current inference will be stored in the stack. Basically, you want to start a conversation all over again, but you don't want to erase the current statement. Here is the example. User says, I want to talk about cars. Depending on the application, that statement might trigger cleanup of the inference stack and start collecting the information from the top. In this case, I command would be useful for you. Next command I would like to talk about is change command, or C. Take a look at this example. Let's go back to our pizza bot where we collected pizza kind and some other parameters, pizza toppings. We want to handle user request where user would say, you know what, I want Hawaiian pizza instead of pepperoni. Having C prefix tells the system not to add Hawaiian to existing T kind list, but instead change the value pepperoni into Hawaiian. This is another useful feature that allows to offload application side and put it on the backend side. Okay, and now let's take a look at another example. User says, I don't want any extra toppings on my pizza. The intent no toppings with a special prefix tilde. Tilde is treated by the system as an instruction to treat from not as something to be communicated to user, but rather change values of the slots in the inference stack. In our particular case, we would delete, that's a command for deletion, we would delete the value of toppings in the inference stack. You can also add parameters or change the values as well. There are other commands available to control inference stack, and here's the list of all supported ones so far. Just to revisit, if intent doesn't have any prefixes, it's considered normal intent. It's been placed into an inference stack along with slot values and collected until one of the command appears in the pipeline, which will change the content of the stack. R command is a return command, returns all collected slots values in an inference history and cleans the history. P, one step back command. Can you repeat it, please? B is a two-step back. What did you say before? Forget command can have a number associated with it, telling the system how many inference stack entries should be erased from the stack, including the current one. G command is go-to command that tells you to go to specific place in the inference stack and make a current one. Change command is very useful to change the value collected already in the inference stack. For example, pizzabot case, where a user would want to change certain toppings or some other parameters. Instead of application handling all of those changes by itself, our backend is capable of changing those parameters without making any changes in the client application. Please visit our documentation intent prefixes to read more about the meaning of the commands.